Hello everybody, it's Larry, and today we have a small video, but I think one that you'll find fun and interesting. It's another tool from Ancestry that you may or may not be using yet. And how you get to it is you go to ancestry.com/learn/facts. So ancestry.com/learn/facts, and that brings you to this page. And this is the surname research page. Now, how this can be useful is if you enter a surname, and I'm going to enter, the Basie surname, which was my name for 30 years prior to DNA showing I was a Brown, and I'm going to show you what it brings up. It brings up a map. It says 1840 and then 1880 and 1920. Now, what's interesting is if you're searching and you're kind of stuck, 1920 or in 1880 or 1840, whichever one's closest to where you're stuck, this can help you by looking at some migration patterns for your family and for your surname. So, how to use this? Well, now the Basie is, I hover over here, you can see 3 of 17. There was only 17 in the entire United States in 1840. And so you'd think it was pretty easy to find information on the family. Well, in truth is there was a name change from the spelling of B-A-S-Y-E to B-A-S-E-Y, and therefore it became very complicated to figure that information out. Now, I will caution you, don't enter search right here if you're wanting to look up another surname, because that will bring you up the Ancestry collections and begin searching that way. So what you want to do is go back to the previous page, and this time we're going to enter Brown, because Brown's obviously a much bigger name. But look, right away we see a migration pattern. Right away. We can just look at this map and say in 1840 we see a definite migration pattern of New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Well, if we hover over, we see Ohio 1800, 1800, and 3300 in New York. So it looks like the family was longer established in New York, and then Pennsylvania, Ohio, and then you can kind of see as the shading gets lighter as it expanded outwards. But you can tell that New York, there was an expansion east, as you can see, up through towards Maine, and one west that went over to Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and then Virginia and North Carolina in that direction as well. And then you see even the more peripheral, which are a much lighter color. Well, this gives you a great idea if they migrated one way and you're trying to find people, instead of flipping the map and going this direction, let's say you're trying to go the other direction. Well, if you know that they went this direction, then if you're going backwards, they're going the other direction. So this can be helpful in figuring out, where they went. And if nothing else, it is nice to see the migration pattern for the family name. Now, the reason is because, this is Indian Territory, and then later, 1920. And you'll also get some information. What did your Brown ancestors do for a living? 34% were farmers, 11% were laborers, 6% were keeping house, and 4% were farm laborers. So you can tell that, the farmers, the farm laborer and farmers, 34 had their own farm, 4%, worked on a farm, probably the children, and then a laborer, 11, and keeping house, which is typically what they listed for the spouses at 6%. So that kind of gives you information there. And then it gives you the stats. Canada, the Browns that were in Canada, 32% farmers, school and servants. And then in England, 4% farmers, 3% coal miners, agricultural labor, and laborer. And so that just kind of gives you an idea of the migration patterns for your family surname, but it can also be useful in looking backwards. So I don't want to make this video real long, but I do want to talk about one thing that this can kind of help. When you hit a wall, and we bang our heads on the wall until we get headaches, look at what a ball does. When you throw a ball, like a tennis ball, up against a wall and it bounces back, but before it does, it compresses and spreads out. And that's what you really need to do to break through walls sometimes. So when you hit that wall, compress, spread out, get the siblings for that person. And then you can go to places like Find a Grave and see if you can find the families buried together. And often if you're looking for, let's say, one family member, let's call it Bob, and you can't find Bob's parents anywhere, but you may find in another document that James Jr. is buried over here. Well, guess what? James Jr., who's the parent? So if you know that James Jr. and Bob are brothers, then you got a James Jr., you know who dad is. And embarrassingly enough to say, that exact same thing happened to me. I couldn't figure out. The parents kept trying. I said, all right. So I spread out, got all the siblings, and there was a junior. And yeah, I felt silly because I spent an amount of time I don't want to admit on looking for that information. So that being said, spread out and get the siblings. You may not be lucky enough to get a junior, but some of you will, and don't feel bad. I did it too. For the others, you may not be able to find them, but look up every one of them and find a grave. And sometimes you'll find that the families were buried together, in the find a grave, and that becomes a real good clue. Now, when you do that, notice that right here where it says Pendleton Cemetery, okay? If you're looking at this and you say, Joseph Taylor, for instance, buried in Pendleton Cemetery, and I want to look for any other Taylors that are buried in the cemetery. Well, looky here. I get a whole list of other Taylors that are buried in the cemetery. So I've got this person, and then I also have, the children. Some of the children that I know are children of this person are also buried in the cemetery. So if I was coming up from the children's name, and let's say I was looking for Larkin in 1826, I might be able to stumble onto Joseph in the same cemetery. I would definitely be looking for information for Joseph if I found Larkin in the cemetery and there's another Taylor here. But I could also click on this and looky here. It tells me point blank that Larkin, his dad, was Joseph. So by looking for that one sibling and, butting our heads up against the wall, sometimes, we get a headache. But if we were to, look at the siblings, sometimes we get that breakthrough by looking at census reports and find a graves, and we get information we would not normally have otherwise gotten. Anyway, if nothing else, I think you'll find that the maps are pretty cool and fun to look at. You get to see, your family spreading out across the United States. And again, remember, you can't just hit search and go this. You have to go back to the previous page in order to, get the next surname to enter it. But if you want to enter all the surnames, you can do that for your family and just kind of see. I think that this is a real interesting map to include with each person in your family tree, in 1840. I'm going to document it for each one of them because I think it provides a good clue on where to look next. This one, the migration pattern, you see in Ohio and New York strength. So if I hover over, I see 39 there, I see 38 there. So I've got two predominant, family units there, maybe different ones. And I see, Maine's a little stronger as far as numbers, but then I also see North Carolina has a little stronger number. So I've probably got a migration pattern from North Carolina to Kentucky, and then I've got another one that came from New York that's maybe a McFarland line that came to the United States before the North Carolina branch. So anyway, so the maps can give you some visual clues, but again, if you're hitting your head on a wall, expand out like that tennis ball, bounce back, come, instead of trying to go up the tree, bounce back down a little bit, get the siblings, and look for the siblings in the census reports and find a grave, and hopefully you'll get a breakthrough. If you did, leave it down in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure to do so and to click the bell notification. I know some of our videos are getting 3, 4, 5, 6,000 views, and we've only got 2,000 subscribers. So I know some of you aren't subscribed yet. So take a moment, click the subscribe button, click the bell notification, and hopefully this video or one of the others will help you break through that brick wall. As always, I appreciate y'all. Thanks, and you guys have a great week.